Humans don't win wars. They end them. Admiral Kiran's voice sliced through the still air, the words hanging in the room like a death knell. The assembled officers sat frozen, disbelief etched into their faces. Some instinctively leaned forward, others sat rigid, their minds racing to comprehend the full weight of that statement. Humans don't win wars, they end them. And by the look on Kiran's face, they knew this was not some metaphor or exaggeration. Kiran let the silence linger for a few more heartbeats, watching as his officers squirmed in their seats. The galaxy had heard rumors about humanity's ruthless efficiency, but few had truly understood the depth of what that meant. They were about to. Finally, he broke the silence. You see, to humans, war is not about victory or defeat. It's not about negotiations or even conquest. When humanity is involved, war becomes something else entirely. It becomes extinction. The massive display screen behind him flared to life. The image that appeared was haunting, an aerial view of a planet that was once a bustling metropolis. Now it was a charred, dead husk. This, Kiran said, his voice cold and factual, was Eloth Prime. Population, 24 billion. A thriving hub of trade, diplomacy, and culture. One of the most advanced societies in the outer sectors. And yet, today, it's nothing more than a graveyard. The image zoomed in, revealing the full scope of the devastation. Entire cities lay in ruins. Molten rivers of slag flowed where great structures had once stood, and the air above the planet was filled with a cloud of ash and dust, so thick it blotted out the sun. What happened? Kiran asked, his voice biting. The Elothians defied a human trade embargo. They believed their planetary defenses were more than enough to resist any potential retaliation. He paused, letting the officers take in the scene before continuing. They were wrong. In less than 6 hours, human forces reduced this planet to nothing more than a smoldering cinder. The humans issued a single warning: comply or face consequences. The Elothians chose to resist. The image shifted again, this time to a human fleet, its ships sleek and foreboding, hovering over the decimated planet. This is what they sent, Kiran continued. One battle group. That's all it took to completely eradicate Eloth Prime. 12 destroyers, each armed with enough firepower to level a continent in minutes. They bombarded the surface with kinetic rods, weapons that hit the planet like meteor strikes, each impact vaporizing entire cities. The room fell into an uneasy murmur. A young officer near the back raised her hand, her voice trembling as she spoke. Admiral, why would they do this? Why destroy an entire planet over a trade dispute? Kiran fixed her with a hard stare. Because to humans, conflict is not something to be drawn out. It's not something to be bargained over. When they see a threat, they eliminate it completely. They don't leave remnants. They don't leave survivors. Once they decide to act, it's already too late for whoever is standing in their way. He gestured to the next image on the screen. This time, a human warship in orbit over an asteroid. This, he said, is the Titan-class ship Erebus. It's a dreadnought capable of wiping out entire star systems. What you're seeing is its latest deployment. During the Namari uprising, the screen flickered to life, showing the asteroid below, a massive rebel base dug deep into its core. For years, the Namari rebels had fought against galactic forces, using their asteroid base as an impenetrable fortress. No one had been able to breach it. No one, that is, until the humans arrived. The video feed zoomed in on the asteroid, showing the massive human warship preparing to fire. Without warning, a beam of energy shot out from the ship, striking the asteroid with terrifying force. For a moment, the asteroid held firm, but then, in an instant, it simply disappeared. Not destroyed, disappeared, as if it had never existed. The singularity cannon, Kiran said quietly. A weapon that doesn't just destroy, it erases. It creates a controlled black hole, a singularity that pulls everything within its range into itself, compressing matter down to nothing. That asteroid base? Gone. As if it had never been there. One of the older officers, a battle-hardened general with decades of experience, spoke up. But, Admiral, what about diplomacy? Couldn't they have negotiated with the Namari? Kiran shook his head slowly. Negotiation is a last resort for humans. They don't care about treaties or diplomatic norms. The Namari had been a thorn in the side of the galactic order for decades. When humanity was called in to help, they didn't bother with talks or negotiations. They eliminated the problem. Completely. He turned back to the screen, letting the next image load. This time, it was a historic moment from Earth itself. An image of a mushroom cloud rising above the Japanese city of Nagasaki in 1945. This, Kiran said, is an example from Earth's own history. Over 100,000 lives were wiped out in mere moments. The humans call this necessary force. They were ending a war, and to them, the lives lost were just part of the equation. He let the officers absorb the image, knowing full well the weight of what he was saying. Humanity developed weapons of mass destruction long before they ever reached the stars. They don't just fight with soldiers and ships, they fight with science, with strategy, and with an understanding of total warfare that no other species in the galaxy can match. When they want a war to end, they ensure it ends with finality. The screen shifted again, this time showing the wreckage of the Rian Collective, a once powerful alliance that had dared to challenge human interests in the Outer Rim. Now, their planets were little more than shattered pieces of rock, floating in space. The Rian Collective made the mistake of underestimating humanity's resolve. They believed that by blocking human trade routes, they could gain leverage in negotiations. Instead, the humans deployed what they call a pacification fleet. Within 48 hours, the Rian Collective ceased to exist. A captain seated in the front row leaned forward, disbelief etched into his features. Admiral, are you saying the humans wiped out an entire civilization in less than 2 days? Kiran nodded grimly. Yes, and they didn't just stop at the planets. They destroyed the Rian fleets, their colonies, their space stations, everything. The Rian Collective is now nothing more than debris, scattered across the void. He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in before continuing. And it's not just on the battlefield where humans are dangerous. Their influence stretches far beyond military power. Economically, technologically, even diplomatically, they are unmatched. The screen shifted once more, showing Earth's modern influence on the galactic economy. In the span of just a few centuries, they have established themselves as the dominant economic force in the galaxy. Their corporations control vast swaths of trade, and their technology has revolutionized everything from space travel to energy production. They're not just warriors, they're builders, and they build with the same efficiency with which they destroy. The room was silent now, the officers frozen in their seats, as the reality of humanity's power washed over them. Some of you may be wondering, Kiran said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, what all of this means for us. We're allies with the humans, after all. We have treaties with them. We fought alongside them in battles. He paused, scanning the faces of the officers, each one reflecting a mixture of fear and uncertainty. But you must understand, alliances, to humans, are temporary, useful only so long as they serve their interests. The moment we become a liability, the moment we pose any threat to their security, they will do to us what they've done to everyone else who's crossed them. It won't matter if we've been allies for a century or for a day. He gestured to the screen one final time, showing a vast starfield filled with the wreckage of countless ships. This is what happens when humans are provoked. This is what happens when they are pushed too far. They don't just fight back, they eliminate the threat. Entire fleets, entire armies, entire planets, all gone in an instant. Chiron stepped away from the podium, his voice growing softer but no less chilling. My message to you today is simple. Never, ever give humans a reason to consider you a threat. Because once they do, there is no coming back. They won't negotiate. They won't hesitate. They will act swiftly and decisively, and when they're done, there will be nothing left. The room remained silent, the officers frozen in place, each one realizing the cold, hard truth. Humanity was not just another species in the galaxy. They were a force of nature, unstoppable, unyielding and utterly terrifying. As Chiron turned to leave, he gave them one final piece of advice. If you take nothing else from this briefing, remember this: humans do not fear war. They end it. And if they ever turn their gaze toward us, we will cease to exist. With that, the lights dimmed, and Chiron left the room, leaving the officers to grapple with the reality of a galaxy ruled by human power.